Have you ever said or done something that you later regretted? Have you ever procrastinated or avoided an important project? Do you ever still love your child, but not really like them? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you, my friend, were in the red zone. Now I'm talking about the psychological red zone, not the physical red zone. And this is based on my newest book, Get Out of the Red Zone, Transform Your Stress and Optimize True Success. So what happens in the red zone? In the red zone, we tend to think differently and act differently. So it's really important to be aware of where you are on the distress scale, because not only does it not feel very good the higher up you go, but it can actually impact your thoughts and your actions. You see, our level of distress impacts how we view and interact with the world, including our children. And the higher level of distress you have, the more likely you are to see things in a negative way. So the reason why the red zone is so important when it comes to your interactions with your teens is that the higher level of distress you are experiencing, the more likely you are to see them in a negative way. So have you ever noticed how when you're really upset, you tend to view people and events in a more negative light, right? What people say or do cause you more distress, even if what they're doing are really not that big of a deal, right? Little events can cause a lot of distress, can feel like colossal experiences. So your teen, your child might do something when you're in the green zone, low levels of stress, and you're like, yeah, they're just being a teenager. They could do the same thing in the red zone when you're in the red zone, and you have a very different reaction. And there's actually a biological reason for this. So let's look at what happens in the green zone. The green zone is at 0, 1, 2, 3, low levels of distress. And in the green zone, you're using more of your frontal lobe, the part here that is highlighted in green, right? And the frontal lobe, of course, is that part of our brain that differentiates us from other animals. It allows us to engage in things like executive functioning, problem solving, perspective taking, right? When we're in the green zone, we can really see all different perspectives. So for example, when your teen responds to you in a gruff manner, when you're at low levels of distress, you're more likely to brush it off. He's just tired, she's having a bad day, might be your interpretation. Okay, so you're using the frontal lobe that allows you to see different perspectives. It's in the green zone that we don't really personalize things. It's in the green zone when we feel confident or more confident. Yeah, I'm not perfect, but I can handle this. It's in the green zone that we can be resilient. Yes, times are tough, and I know they'll get better. Okay. But the higher level of distress you have, the less you see things from all different perspectives, and the more you focus on the negative. And there is a physiological or biological reason for this, because when you were in the red zone, that 7, that 8, that 9, or 10, you were using more of your limbic system, that region that's highlighted here. And that limbic system really is emotional reasoning. It's the area in your lower part of your brain that's responsible for things like fight or flight. Emotional reasons. So instead of processing information rationally using your frontal lobe, when your limbic system is more in control, we tend to process information in more negative ways, right? So when you're at a 7 out of 10 or higher on that distress scale, you reach what I call the red zone. And in the red zone, we usually don't think or act 100% rationally. Why? Because again, our brain is using a different part. It's using that limbic system, that fight or flight. Our subconscious almost feels like we are drowning. And when we are drowning, we don't see the perspective of everyone else, right? When we are drowning, we are focused on the problem, and we're trying to do everything we can to help ourselves to keep ourselves alive, which could mean pushing down other people. It could be not listening to other people, but again, focusing on the problem. So if you're in the red zone and your teen responds to you in a gruff manner, rather than giving them the benefit of the doubt, you might think, oh, they're so disrespectful to me. They don't appreciate all I do for them. And that can cause you to feel more distress, right? To interact with your teen in a less than loving way, and then even feel lousy about yourself, which then perpetuates the red zone, right? We think more negatively in the red zone. We feel more negatively in the red zone, which causes us to think more negatively in the red zone. We act more negatively in the red zone. We feel more negatively in the red zone, and it becomes this downward spiral. So one of my coaching clients, I work with teens and parents of teens. And one of my coaching clients, Sydney, she was a mom of 3 who would yell at her kids. Not uncommon, of course, but she would yell at her kids when she got into the red zone. And then she would feel incredible guilt, right? Maybe you've had that experience. You yell at your kid, you feel really guilty, which increased her stress and made it more likely that she would lose it again. From 0, no distress at all, to 10 out of 10, the most distressed you've ever been, right? Because think about it. Distress is not an all or nothing entity. Sometimes you might feel angry, but you could be a little irritated, right? Low on the distress scale. Or you could be so angry that you were yelling or throwing something or had the proverbial steam coming out of your ears, right? There are different levels of anger, just like there are any emotion. And so that's why this continuum is really important. 0 meaning no distress at all, 10 meaning the most distressed you've ever been. And the red zone, as you can see from this diagram, happens when we're at a 7 out of 10 or higher. I'm always telling my clients, if you're at a 7 out of 10 or higher in that distress scale, don't let anything out of your mouth, because that's when we tend to say things we later regret, right? And don't put anything in your mouth, because that's when we tend to consume things we don't necessarily want.